In this compilation video, we're going to go over some tips and tricks and some stuff with epoxy, so stick around. Hey everybody, I just want to share a quick little fix that hopefully will help you out if you experience this. It happens to the best of us. This is orange peel and epoxy. There's several things that can cause this, but I know exactly what caused mine. And I had one of my shims that I was leveling this up with, inadvertently fell out. I guess I bumped it and it fell out. So the epoxy ran to one side and made that one really thin and ended up causing the orange peel. So basically, I just go ahead and grab me, this is 180 grit sandpaper. Literally just take it out here and sand it back down. It doesn't have to be perfectly flat. You just want to try to scuff up the surface so you can get that mechanical bond with the epoxy that you're going to be redoing. We're going to redo our flood coat after we do this. So you just really want to get it sanded down, decently, scuffed up the whole surface. Make sure you get you a microfiber cloth or something. Use an air gun, and make sure you clean the surface very, very well. If you don't, that's actually another thing that can cause orange peel. Not having the surface clean, it can also cause you other problems as well. Not having it clean, you'll have stuff show up in your epoxy. Here, I'm just going to mix up what I know is should be about 26 ounces for this sign. I am going to slow this down here because I kind of want to touch on this. I definitely follow manufacturer's recommendations whenever you're stirring your epoxy. Most of them you're going to find are going to tell you to stir for several minutes. But if you see here, when you start stirring, it kind of gets a cloudy consistency. I've mentioned this in another video. And again, stir what they say to stir. But the truth is, I've made many signs like this and messed with epoxy. I left this in real time so you can kind of see I'm only stirring for, I don't know, maybe a minute and a half, something like that. So you can look at the timer and see. Make sure you definitely scrape the sides to get anything unmixed off the sides and get it to the middle so you can actually mix it. But all you really have to do is mix until it turns clear. Here in just a second, I'm going to kind of show you how it went from that cloudy. You can probably already see through the container here that it's actually pretty clear now. Once it's got that clear to it, it's mixed pretty well. Yes, there's going to be some bubbles in it because I'm not mixing it super slow. But with these flood coat type pours, I really don't care. Usually it only takes one hit with the heat gun and all those bubbles are popped. You're only looking about like an eighth of an inch or so. See how nice and clear it is? Yes, bubbles are in it, but it's really clear. So that's really what you're looking for when you stir everything up. So definitely make sure you pour into another container. If there is anything left on the sides that is not mixed up, you certainly don't want that in your finished product. So I poured it into another container. Give it a little bit more of a stir just to make sure everything's nice and mixed up. And yes, I'm doing this on my CNC. I have a pretty large cutting board order that is taking up most of my shop, and my assembly table is not available. So we're just going to take this inside and we are going to pour it. It is level this time. You can see my shims in the back there. I do have it level, so we're just going to pour it out. One of the more satisfying parts, you can use the little scraper thing that I have there, but actually I decided just to go ahead and grab a glove and just spread it out by hand. You can absolutely do that. Spread it around as evenly as you can. Let it run over the sides. You want good coverage on the sides. And grab your torch or your heat gun and come back and pop your bubbles. It usually only takes one time, and usually don't have to come back. And we come back the next day and you can see that all of the orange peel is gone. Well, that's all I got for today. I hope this video helped you out a little bit, and we will see you in the next video. The next video is going to be about how I create my multicolored signs. I do use exclusively eye candy pigments and super clear epoxy now, so as you see me using stuff in this video, understand these are a little bit older videos. Some of them are newer, but I do use them exclusively now, and I will absolutely leave a link in the description if you are interested and you want to pick you up some of that product, as well as a discount code. So, all right, let's go on with this sign. This is some of my buddies over at Foam Frat. First thing I do is take the design to my CNC machine, and I use several different varieties of material. MDF is certainly an easy one to work with. It's not super expensive, and it does really, really well on these types of signs. Obviously, if it's one that's going to be outside or something, you'd probably want to use something different, or at least get it sealed to where it wouldn't be damaged by the weather. But anyway, so it's going to cut that out. The initial pocket that I make, this is where I'm going to pour the base layer, which is going to be my main background color, which in this instance on this logo is going to be gray. So I calculate my epoxy out. I mix most of my epoxy for these sign pours by hand. I don't mix with a drill until I do bigger pours like for tables and stuff. But you basically just, you know, the instructions will tell you to mix it for 5-6 minutes or whatever. I never do. I simply mix it until it becomes clear, because once you start mixing it, you'll get this cloudy film. And then once it's actually mixed thoroughly, you're good. It'll be clear. And I'm using some black pigment and some white pigment. I've actually ordered some gray. This is the first time I've made this sign for this client. I've made several other signs for them, but this is the first time I've made this particular one, and it required gray. I did not have a good gray color that matched the logo, so this took a little trial and error here, but I actually mixed it up and matched it with black and white. I use the white liquid pigment, and then, of course, like the mica powder black. I'm mixing two of these up, and I'm going to pour them together once I get them all mixed. Anytime you're doing signs, or any epoxy for that matter like this, you don't want to pour directly from the same container that you've mixed in, especially you don't want to scrape the sides of that container. You'll wind up with some unmixed material, and wherever it's not mixed properly, it's not going to cure properly, and you can have some soft spots in your work. So make sure you mix them into a bigger container. And then simply just pour it out. And what I find with these pours of this size and this depth, you don't typically have to go over more than one time with the torch to pop the bubbles afterwards. Plus, mixing by hand will cause less bubbles to be in your mix anyway. So I simply just pour this out to right about the level of it, maybe just overflowing slightly, because epoxy will shrink as it cures. And then probably one of the most satisfying things is this right here, when you get to come back with the torch and watch all these bubbles pop. So satisfying. But anyway, like I said, typically one time with this. You can also use a heat gun if you don't have a torch. It works the same. Basically, when you're done with that, the next thing we are going to do is come in and carve in our next tool path. This is made up of several different tool paths, and you have to let the epoxy dry in between each one. So basically here it's carving out my next tool path. Like I said, there are several different tool paths in this. I try to keep them to the same color resin that I'm going to pour, if at all possible. There's some signs that I just can't do that, unfortunately, but luckily with this one I was able to break it down to where I only had to pour each color one time. Just a few shots of it going here. You can see epoxy is definitely a mess, so just be prepared if this is something you're going to do. I have some little issues here with the spindle, but I wanted to give you an idea of what it looks like just without the vacuum attached. Of course, it is going to make a mess, but that's completely fine. This is a 60-degree V-bit. This is what I use for all the edges of the design, the lettering, and everything. Once the initial bulk of the material is cleared, it comes back and kind of shapes up the edges of everything and then finishes carving out the entire design. I don't typically do any kind of instructional videos on how to operate a CNC. As a matter of fact, I really don't do a lot of CNC related material on my channel. If you would like to see more, I'd be more than happy to. I just don't, because these toolpaths do typically take a long time to run, and a lot of people don't like watching them. So if you'd like to see that, comment below and I can help with that. But as far as tutorials go with different software, there's plenty to be seen. This is what it looks like once I've pocketed out everything for black. This is going to be my black pour. So everything you saw that was carved out in that photo is actually going to be filled with black epoxy. And this is what it looks like when it's completely done. Now it is overflowing onto the gray, yes, but I'm going to come back and surface that, and you'll see that here in a second. So basically this is what's going on here. I have a surfacing bit in my router, and it goes back and forth on a toolpath that I create and surfaces just about a 1/16 or so, maybe less, off the top. So you can kind of see it fall into the background, but what it does is it removes that excess on top of the work and allows me to actually surface everything smooth, and the colors will actually pop and the lines are clean. There you saw I did not record the other tool paths on here, but they work the same way, just with different colors. And then now once I'm done, I come over to my router table, and I have tabs on mine. This is how I get rid of tabs on my work, is I use this bit here. It's just a flush trim bit in my router table, and I get rid of all of the tabs around the side. Then I just simply wipe it off, go and set it up on a flat surface, which you'll see here in a few minutes, and then I come back and I mix my epoxy that's going to go over the top. All of that cloudiness you saw will go away once I pour this clear coat over the top. Mix it the same way as I did the other one. It just stays clear, and then basically just pour it on. I go ahead and I wipe down the sides. It kind of makes it flow over the sides a little easier, and then I just use a scraper and spread it around and then push it over the sides so it flows, and that's it. Then I'll hit it with a torch again, and it's done. It just has to dry, and this is what the finished product will look like. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, comment below, and we'll see you in the next video. The next video is just how to do a simple flood coat on any kind of sign you've done. I had a few questions about my signs, so I just want to do a real quick explanation on how I do my signs. First thing you're going to need is a square notch trowel. Mine's an 1/8 inch square notch when you're doing your flood coat. I've just mixed up some super clear tabletop epoxy here. It's a 1:1 ratio. I calculated the area. About 3 ounces per square foot is what you need. On these signs, that's tends to be a little too much. I really think you could probably drop it to 2, but in any case, I went ahead and mixed up 3 just for this tutorial to kind of show you. This is my sign of Weiss Lake, Alabama, which is pretty close to me. It's actually an order for a customer. But basically, I mixed this up prior to doing this, and the reason I'm scraping it out is because this is actually a clean bucket where I had dumped everything else into, and it's not the mix bucket. You would never want to scrape out the mix bucket. So basically, you just simply take the square notch trowel and just run it around. Make sure you get all of the surface area coated first before you start pushing over the edge. Now, some of mine's going to push over the edge anyway because, again, I think this is just a little too much for this, but anyway, that's what it is. It's going to wind up being about 1/8 of an inch thick on top. You can see it poured over the side, pretty good bit there. But anyway, so now once I've got the whole surface coated, now I'm going to go around and purposely push it over the edge so it gets the sides coated. One thing you can't see in here, you don't have to do this, I do this just because it makes it a little easier to finish it, is I've actually got tape around the edges on the bottom side. I just put some epoxy tape under there. It helps with the drips that you can see there, because once those do harden, you have to sand them off. I just avoid that whole part by putting tape on there, and I can just pop the tape off, and it's a pretty seamless process to the edge here. I don't do epoxy on both sides. I do seal the back side of the wood. These particular signs, I actually use several coats of shellac to seal the back. But as you can see, it flows over really nicely. The epoxy that I did prior to this, just while I'm doing this in the video, these are about 1/8 of an inch deep on a pocket tool path. The lake itself is actually a engraving tool path that I used to be able to get all the little fingers of the lake, and then sanded it down. Whenever you're done with this trowel, one thing you want to make sure you do, you don't have to clean it off, you absolutely can, but if you are going to just set it down, make sure you set it down with the flat portion down. That way, as the epoxy runs down, it does not clog up your little spaces there, and you can continue to use it. I actually cleaned mine off. I set it there for demonstration, but I'm going to come back here in just a little bit and wipe it all down, because it bothers me. Next thing I'm going to do is put on a glove. If you're going to mess with epoxy, you definitely want to have gloves handy. Keep this stuff off your hands, and plus for things like this, I just simply take my hand and rub it around the edges and kind of make sure all of the surface area of the sides are covered. You can do the same thing if you want to, and I do sometimes. Beforehand, you can take a little brush and actually break the surface tension by brushing on some epoxy on the edges, and it will typically flow over the edges a little more evenly. Or you can do it this way. It really doesn't matter. You're going to get the same results in the end. I had a little running epoxy there going to drip on my floor. Again, a little too much epoxy, so I had a lot of runoff. Hey, please, if you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button and that like button. It really does help the channel out, and hopefully you're getting something out of this video. So the next thing we're going to do is, you're going to have some air bubbles in here, and when I do these tabletop pours, I don't even worry about putting it in a vacuum chamber because it is so thin. It's real easy to pop the bubbles. You can just take a torch like I have here, or you can use a heat gun, just whatever your preference, and just kind of quickly go back and forth across the whole surface area, and you can watch the bubbles just simply pop. Typically, as long as you've sealed your wood and you don't have any bubbles that come up from the surface of the wood itself, usually one pass on these tabletop pours is completely fine. You do not want to hit the edges, however, because you don't want that to heat up and start running faster. You'll wind up with a lot of dry spots around your edges. Well, that's it. I hope you stuck around to the end of the video. I really appreciate it. One final look here. Don't forget to like and subscribe and come back and visit us. We're doing some tool giveaways and a lot of fun stuff in the near future. Hope this video helped. Thanks. Okay, the next video, I'm going to probably ramble on a good bit here in the beginning. This sign is made, if you've been following the channel for any time, you're aware that I've done a compilation video with Matt with 731 Woodworks. I will consider him a friend now. We do talk a lot. So this is a sign that I created with epoxy and wood, but off of a logo of his channel membership. So this was a lot of fun to do. This was, before I did the video with him and everything, but it was just something I really wanted to do. So you can listen to me here, ramble on. I'll turn it down a little bit, but basically I'm just kind of going over the past and giving him credit to where it is due, and being one of the main influencers of me actually hitting record to start this channel, which I'm super grateful for. So anyway, if you don't already follow Matt, there should be a link in the description to follow his channel as well. Definitely check out the compilation video that we did together to benefit St. Jude. That was great. We raised a lot of money, so really looking forward to it. So anyway, here you go. Here is kind of another video on how I do my multicolored signs. This one is just a little bit different, as I used some of the wood species for part of the color in some of the signs. So, all right, let's go.
That person is Matt over at 731 Woodworks. Been following his channel for a while, watching his channel grow. Just an inspiration all the way around. And we have a similar background. His obviously is law enforcement. I'm a paramedic. Mine's been in public safety as well. So kind of cool. Maybe that's what gave me the inspiration. But in any case, I support his channel as well. I'm a subscriber. I'm also part of his 2Before Nation. I know some of you have come over from that channel as well, so you know what I'm talking about. So I've had some questions again about some of my multicolored signs that I do with epoxy. This one's a little different. I did a video. I'll link the description to it if you want to see a totally epoxy sign that is completely done with epoxy and multicolor. But this one, if you have been on his channel, you'll recognize this. I actually made this, reached out to Matt, super nice guy, got him to send me the logo. So he's aware this is actually, at the time this is released, should be either at his house or on its way to his house. But I made this as a gift to him, and also go over, kind of how I do this. So in any case, I hope you enjoy this video. By all means, put a comment below if you've got any questions. Hit that like button, and please subscribe if you're not already. We're growing, and I'm looking forward to it. Got some giveaways coming up and some pretty interesting stuff. So anyway, thanks for listening to me ramble up to this point. I appreciate it, and let's get started.
Okay, so I did ramble on just a bit there. I apologize, and you're going to see me walking around in the background. So basically what I'm doing here, I've got a large cutting board order, about 400 of them. You see them stacked up in the background. I'm using a Jenny 60-degree V-bit. I'll leave a link and everything that I use in the description. Some are affiliates, some are not. But basically for the letters and the saw blade and the lines, I'm using a V-carve toolpath. Actually works really good in this this aspect. I do a little bit different than some people that I've seen. I actually run the V-carve first before I run the clearing path, which you'll see with the downcut bit here in just a minute. It actually tends to do a little bit better. It leaves you basically some meat, so to speak, on the wood. So as that V-carve and V-bit is going here, it's actually got some wood to push up against. If you run your pocket toolpath first, a lot of times you have weaker areas that wind up breaking off. So this is actually a better way to do it, in my opinion. It's worked well for me. There you go. I'm running the clearance toolpath with a larger 1/4-inch downcut bit from this one's actually from Andy Bird's Builds. Thanks, Andy, for sending this over. I wore out the last one. I used it so much. So great bits. Gotten some good use out of them. So anyway, this is going to clear all this out, and you kind of see the finished product here, or sort of the finished product, the start of it. We're going to go ahead and mix up our epoxy. I order these little cups off of Amazon, pretty cheap. I'll leave a link in the description. I like them because they've got the ratios on the side. You're going to see me using eye candy. I pretty much use exclusively eye candy pigments, as well as super clear epoxy. So the way I do these signs, I cut my depth to a 1/4 inch or so. So I always use tabletop epoxy. You can pour super clear's tabletop epoxy, according to the manufacturer, up to a 1/4 inch. I can tell you I've poured it up to about 0.34 of an inch, and it's done absolutely fine. I love eye candy's gel pigments. A very little bit goes a long, long way, and it's just such a pure color. This is going to be our white, of course. We're going to pour it in the saw blade and the lines. Off camera, I forgot to go ahead and carve that tool path for my green. That's going to be my backdrop for my 2x4 part of this. That's going to be in black. So here, basically, we're going to pour the white. I use and order these off of Amazon. They're just basically like 30 ml syringes. They work great. I mean, for some of this, I could have actually just went ahead and poured out of the smaller bucket there, but I've got enough time to work with this that I don't really have to rush. But I do like to use the syringe, especially on these letters. Now, as far as how to fill these, with this particular application, it doesn't really matter, because once I'm done, I'm actually going to go back and put this on the CNC, and I'm going to run a flattening pass on it, so I can really overfill if I want to. But I try not to overfill a whole lot, just so it's less mess to deal with. But so I'm just going to do these here, and I always mix up a lot more epoxy than I need, but that's okay. The reason I didn't also seal the wood here, typically, if you've seen some of my other videos, I usually always seal my wood before I do this, is because, again, I'm going to run that finishing pass and flattening pass, so I really don't have to worry about on this. With this tabletop epoxy, typically one time with the torch, and you get rid of all the bubbles. Maybe a second time if you need to, but it's usually not necessary. Mixed up the green in the same way, and I apologize if I didn't say anything. The tabletop epoxy is a 1-to-1 ratio, so pretty easy to mix. Went back, popped the bubbles on that one too. So came back the next day, everything's dry, so we're going to go ahead and carve in our 2x4 part into the epoxy. And again, this makes a huge mess. I'm sacrificing my shop to all of you. You're welcome. Anyway, so you can see me sticking the shop vac in there occasionally, try to get it cleaned up so you can kind of see what it's doing. But we're just going in and carving the 2x4. This one doesn't require any other clearance passes or anything. This is just a straight V carve into the green colored epoxy, which is part of the logo. We're going to go back in and we're going to fill that in with black. We're going to mix the black the same way. It's going to be also using eye candy pigments. It's going to be their gel pigment on this. The gel pigments are great for these solid colors. You don't get the effects you do with the other powdered pigments, which are really cool sometimes. But in this, we really didn't need that. We needed the solid color. And then we're going to carve the additional little black lines in the saw blade. Some of the lines were used with the walnut, but that was by design. I wanted to do it that way. And again, going to mix up a smaller batch here of this, but this is eye candies. I can't ever say that word. It's their black anyway. So again, going back with the super clear tabletop epoxy. I also order these small little cups on Amazon. I'll leave a link to them as well. They always work pretty good. And you can see me leaning over here looking all funny and stuff, but basically just making sure I hit my lines good. There's a little tolerance, of course, but I try to get as close as possible with the mixture. So you will hear a lot of times a certain time amount you're supposed to mix your epoxy. Here's what I can tell you from experience. It's not necessarily the amount of time. Yes, you do need to give it time, but it's more in how well you mix it. You can still mix it for 3 to 5 minutes and not do a great job of mixing and still have issues. Most of the issues that I see on the groups that I'm on and the questions that I get are usually mixing issues whenever you have epoxy that's not cured, especially when you're talking about the deeper pour epoxies as well. Make sure you mix thoroughly. I also pour all of my mix into a last container that's going to be used for drawing this up and pouring out of, because you don't want any of that unmixed epoxy to get in there. Using a 1-inch surfacing bit here, just making one single pass. I think I ran this pass at 0.6 something inches to get the final product here. It works great. Throwing in a little 1/8 inch round over. Matt will appreciate this because he loves that 1/8 inch round over bit. He uses it a lot on his projects. So we're going to go ahead and sand this down. Basically, I'm only sanding this down after that bit. That bit does a great job. I'm sanding this down to 150 grit. It's going to be fine. Off camera, I'm going to water pop this and sand it again. And I'm going to sand it at 180. And that's going to be my final sand. The front of it's going to be a flood coat of epoxy. So you don't have to do this. You can absolutely sand at the end. But I actually am trying to be lazy here. I don't want to sand. And plus, it tears up sandpaper pretty quick. So I like to put some epoxy tape or something on the back right up to the edge of the corner, so that way once the epoxy runs over the edge and drips, I can actually pull those drips off in a strip. As a rule of thumb, you want somewhere around, for a flood coat, around 3 ounces per square foot. I did just a little bit more than that here, which is fine. Definitely invest in some gloves. You can use the little trowels or the trowels or whatever and spread it out. I've got a little spreader right there from Woodcraft. I actually wind up not even using it because most of the time when I do these, I use a glove and just use my hand anyway. One thing I do try to do is I try to pull some of the epoxy out and rub it on the edges. It actually makes the flow over the edge of your project a lot smoother, and kind of breaks the surface tension and allows it to flow over. So that's what I do here in the beginning. And you can just take some of the epoxy from the buckets you're pouring. You can literally just take it from the top, like I do a little bit here. And once I get that kind of spread across, I just really take my hand and just kind of spread it out. This epoxy is great. It's self-leveling, so once you get all this spread out, it's going to self-level itself anyway. Since I did not seal the wood with anything, I'm going to hit this several times with the torch just to make sure I don't have any bubbles that wind up forming from air inside in the grain of the wood. So it wound up being great. I think I wound up hitting it three times with the torch, probably about 10-12 minutes apart. Again, this is tabletop, so it's not going to take it long to start setting up. And here's kind of what I was talking about. When I get done without all the sanding, I can just literally pull the tape off and the little drips come with it. It's great. You do have to do some sanding to try to get that rest of that off there, but it really doesn't take that much, and it's a pretty quick process. Once I get done sanding, I like to blow everything off with the air gun, and then I use denatured alcohol to make sure I wipe up everything. I'm going to wind up putting some Rubio Monocoat. I love Rubio Monocoat, especially on walnut. It is just absolutely gorgeous. So I'm going to seal the back with Rubio Monocoat here. And again, I use these syringes because Rubio is going to be a 3-to-1 mixture, and a little bit goes a long way if you've never really used Rubio. So basically, I'm just going to draw 6 mLs up of the main here, and then I'll put a couple mLs of the hardener. These syringes, again, you can order them off Amazon. They work great for applications like this. So I'm going to mix it on, spread it around. I'm going to rub it in with a little mesh cloth here. Wait about 15 minutes or so. I'm going to wipe off the excess, and I'm just going to let it cure. Great product. I love Rubio. I'm not going to do anything to the back. I'm going to let Matt decide how he wants to hang it. He's a woodworker. If he wants to cut a T-slot into it or something, he can. So there you go. It's funny watching some of these older videos. I was about 45 pounds heavier in some of them. Not all of them, but you can definitely tell the difference in each of those. So in any case, I'll mention now the shirts you're seeing me wearing now, and some of the other ones are actually shirts that were designed here at STL Woodworking. I am going to have those for sale on my site. I'm working on that in the background right now, and hopefully after the first of the year we'll have that up and going. So this last video that I've got here is a video that I did in conjunction with Woodcraft at Chattanooga, which is another channel supporter. We wanted to kind of show how to make some resin boards, and I do currently teach classes there at Woodcraft in Chattanooga on resin.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am here in the location I alluded to in one of my previous videos, kind of the little teaser. We are at Woodcraft in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I am here with John.
Hello.
So what we're going to do today is we're going to do a kind of a tutorial on resin pouring along with wood in one of these molds. So this is the Jess Crow mold that I alluded to in the other video that was actually sent to me by Ahonui Artisans out of Texas. I appreciate the gesture there, sending me the molds. They sent me this mold and some coaster molds. Hopefully I'll have some videos of those later. We're going to be using Total Boat. This is Total Boat's thick set. It's going to be a 3-to-1 ratio mix. We're going to be making basically a charcuterie board. It's probably going to be close to 1 inch thick. The wood we're using is actually going to be canary wood. It's actually a very beautiful wood. If you're not familiar with it, you'll get to see some of that in the process. Stick around to the end of the video because I'm going to let you know a little secret about what we're doing here and what we're going to be doing at the end, and might be some stuff being given away. So make sure you stick around. This is not currently a class that is offered at this location. That's why we're kind of doing it this way. However, they do offer many classes. John, you want to go over those?
So we offer woodworking fundamentals, a furniture making class, some cabinet making classes, turning classes, scroll saw classes, CNC classes, wood burning, and knife making classes.
So going to leave a link in the description to the store's website as well as the phone number. Go on there, look at the website, look at all the classes they offer. If you want to sign up for one of their classes, you're in the Chattanooga area or in the Nashville area as well, sign up, give them a call, sign up for their classes. Great bunch of guys here teaching, so you'll have a lot of fun. All right, let's get to it.
Okay, so one of the first things we're going to do is cut these boards down to size, get a chance to use the Capex battery operated. I'm excited. I can't afford one of these in my shop, so we get to play with it here. So John's going to do most of the work. He volunteered no matter what he tells you. I think he does make me do some work here in just a few minutes, but these molds are 18.5 inches long, so we're going to go ahead and cut this canary wood down. Wanted to go with kind of a, not a river, but a live edge look to it. So we're going to cut these down to length, and then we're going to go over to the bandsaw and basically cut them down the middle, sort of. You don't have to be super accurate on this. This is where John put me to work and said I needed to do something, so I'm going to go ahead and clean the bark off. This is just a rotary disc with 40 grit sandpaper. Works pretty good with this this simple live edge. We did the other side, but yeah, just you can get a rough estimate of what you're wanting your how much wood you're wanting, as opposed to resin. It's kind of what we did here. And then take it over the bandsaw. It does not have to be perfectly straight. We're going to run this thing through the jointer to get us a straight edge, but it doesn't have to be a square edge, just as long as it's straight, because it actually kind of gives it some character when the resin's not actually straight. You'll see that kind of towards the end. But we're going to just go ahead and cut this in half. Then we're going to go from here. We're going to move over to this helical head Powermatic jointer. We're just going to joint this edge and just get it nice and flat, so we'll have a good reference point for the side of the mold. We're not going to be taking off a ton of material at a time. Get it set pretty shallow. Basically, we just want to make sure we really just get this edge flat so it can rest up against the mold. The molds, again, were sent to me by Ohonui Artisans. This is actually a mold that was sent to the store. These are molds you can actually pick up in the Woodcraft stores now. This is the Jess Crow mold. Excellent molds. You can see they're pretty easy to deal with here. Just some screws or bolt heads put in there. You've got some blocks. All of this comes with each of the molds. Help hold your wood down. Super easy to use molds. Reach out to Keith over at Ohonui Artisans. Look at some of his posts on Instagram, and you can kind of see what they've got going on. Go over to your local Woodcraft and pick you up a set of these molds. This is the 18.5 by 8-ish, I believe. I don't remember the exact measurements. So we're using Total Bulk thick set here. This is a 3-to-1 mixture. Of course, we calculated it out. Just get your average measurement over the length of your board, and then you'll multiply that by the length, the width, and the depth. You can stick it in any resin calculator, and it'll kind of give you the ounces. So we're going to mix this up in basically 3 batches. Didn't want to mix up a ton at one time, although you got a pretty good bit of working time with this Total Bulk 3-to-1 mixture. But going to mix them all up separate, and then we're going to pour them all together into a larger container just for the pour. Going to go ahead and mix the color in, get that going, and then pour it into a separate container as well. Of course, here's what everybody loves seeing. Very satisfying to pour this resin. Like I said, this is roughly 1 inch thick. This Total Bulk thick set is also available at Woodcraft for you to purchase. This 3-to-1 mixture is good for up to 1 inch thick max. So we're just under 1 inch here, so this should be completely fine as far as being able to cure, not causing any cracks, not causing it to gel up. So here we go. Next thing we want to do is, there's going to immediately be some bubbles. We didn't put this in a vacuum chamber or anything, so we're going to go ahead and I'm going to use a torch here just to kind of go underneath, pop the bubbles next to the wood. Didn't seal this live edge like I normally do on my boards as well as my tables, but this one worked out pretty well. You can see here, it looks like it's pretty much ready to go. So what we're going to do is, of course, we're going to have to come back probably in a day or so. Ended up being here. We are back, and it's a little over a week later before I could get back up to the store and finish filming this video. But here we are. We are completely cured. So we're going to just go demold this. Super easy to demold these molds. Basically, all you need is a Phillips head driver, drill driver, impact driver, or regular screwdriver will work just fine. Just take you a little longer. You basically want to take all the screws out of it. It makes it easier to deal with. You could just take the face off and break it loose on the sides and maybe pry it out, but I I like to clean it between each time because, you know, you got mold release in there. So it's easier just to go ahead and take it all apart. Get your screwdriver. Just be really careful. Don't damage the mold itself and pop it loose. Next thing we're going to do is come over here to the Powermatic planer they have. Just do a few passes through here just to get it evened out. Like I said, the board itself was right at an inch thick. We want to be just under that inch thick with the resin, so we're going to have to do a little bit of planing. Go ahead and do the top side, get it good and ready to go, and then we're going to quickly do the one pass on the bottom side. Usually works pretty good. Come over here to the table saw. We're just going to go ahead and square up one side here, get that little bit of resin trimmed off so we can expose the wood. Come over and cross cut to our final length. We get to use a Festool Capex again. I'm super excited about that. Maybe I can talk them into giving me one. Anyway, so I like to put bevels on my charcuterie boards of this nature just because it makes it easier to lift up. You don't have to put handles on it or anything. So we basically take this over to anywhere between a 40 and 45 degree bevel is completely fine. We're going to do that here. Grip on there so you can lift it up pretty easy off of any kind of surface. Pretty much after we get this trimmed up, the last thing we really have to do is do the sanding. Show you a quick little clip of it, but nobody really wants to sit here and watch us sand all this. So again, check out your local Woodcraft store. You can find most of the equipment we used here there. You can find the resin. You can find the wood as well as the molds. So check out your local store.
Okay, everybody, that was the process. I hope you were able to take something away from this and maybe learned a thing or two. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comment. This is our finished product. Nice little bevels on the back. So what we ended up doing is we wound up making two of these. I actually made one at my house. We made this one here. So we're actually going to be giving away both of these boards. One of the boards is going to be given away on this channel. I'll announce that later, probably in the next couple of weeks, how to enter that contest. Also, keep an eye out on Woodcraft of Chattanooga's website, and if you're in the Chattanooga area, stop by, because the other board we're going to be giving away here at the store. So looking forward to doing that. Don't forget, we're almost at 500. We're about to be giving away a Festool ETS 125 sander. Hopefully very soon, so definitely stick around and come back for that. That's all I got. You got anything, John?
Or their Facebook page.
There you go. Yeah, visit their Facebook page. They're probably going to announce things like this. I mentioned in the beginning of the video they don't currently offer this type of class. However, during the process of recording this and editing and getting back, we've had some discussions, and there's a good possibility, might even be me teaching a class similar to this, but we're definitely going to have some classes coming up. So definitely check the website and Facebook page. All right, see you in the next video.
See you later.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is just going to be a really quick video here. I was actually out here filming a review for my year that I've had my Harvey table saw. And when I did that, I was demonstrating the miter gauge and cutting one of my charcuterie boards. I cut off some epoxy. I've had this question asked a couple of times. I do table builds. I really have not put any on the channel because they can really get quite lengthy. I am going to start trying to throw those in from time to time. So if you think that's a great idea, comment below. If you think it's not a great idea, yeah, by all means, comment below. But so this question has come up around here locally to me as far as wood movement and the epoxy bond. Will the epoxy be too hard and not allow wood movement, so theoretically causing the epoxy to separate from the wood over time? So I got a little example here. This is just basically, this is a entryway table that I was working on. My favorite colors here. that's eye candy's color. I'll link the description and give you a code. You can get 10% off. Go over and visit their store. But this right here is completely done. This is a flood coat. Even if you didn't have the flood coat on it, though, you still have this bond here between the epoxy and the wood. And the question is, does it separate over time? And can the epoxy not flex? Because epoxy is very hard. Well, the answer is actually it can flex. So I use this. This is the strip I cut off of that serving board a few minutes ago. And I wanted to demonstrate that there is flexibility in epoxy. Even though this is hard as a rock, I mean, it's hard. It still has, now this is extreme, but you get my point. It still has the flexibility to allow for wood movement, and it's not going to separate. So that's not something you really have to worry about. Just keep in mind, now I'm only speaking for the epoxy that I use, but I feel sure this goes across the board. I use exclusively Super Clear, but it's going to be the same for any epoxy. I would imagine. I imagine it's formulated close to the same as far as that goes. It's going to have some give to it. So that's all I got for today. Stick around for some cool stuff. Got some good giveaways coming up. If you are watching this all the way to the end and you are part of the 2x4 Nation over at 731 Woodworks, I'll leave a link in the description. Tune in to the live this Tuesday evening. Might not be something going to be told. Anyway, if you got any questions, just leave them below. I will mention too, I haven't really said anything. See my shirt, Chattanooga School of Woodworking. I am going to actually be teaching some resin classes at Woodcraft of Chattanooga, probably starting in November or so. So keep an eye out for that.
Well, if you made it to the end, thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video. Hope you enjoyed.